Good evening, everybody. We're just quickly letting everyone hop on and we will begin in just a minute or two. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are hosting our first of what will be many community meetings so that we can gather together and begin to talk about the newly approved Safe Outdoor Space that is going to be going in Santa Fe. This was approved a few weeks ago through City Council, but we've been talking about it and holding community meetings for over a year now. So we're really excited to see this move forward. And our hope for tonight is really that we can offer some education, some basic understanding of what safe outdoor spaces are, what a pallet shelter is, most common question, as well as really talk through some of the concerns that we usually hear when we want to go ahead and put one of these up in any community. So real briefly, we have lots of amazing speakers tonight. I'm Dr. Van Boris. I work with Project Moxie. Project Moxie has been doing safe outdoor spaces and working with Pallet Shelter in over 13 states, varying communities, as well as across the border now. We have been really honored and privileged to come in and help not only set up these sites, but to really work with each of the communities so that we can gain volunteers and ensure transparency and community connection. I'm joined this evening by two of my colleagues, Sarah Manji, as well as Lauren Hegarty. And then we have a guest speaker tonight, Cass Cronin from Earthlinks. We have multiple individuals joining us, Allison, Susan, and Joeen from Christ Lutheran. And then you'll hear from Janelle with Lifelink as well. So quickly, an overview of this evening. First and foremost, we're asking everyone to stay muted just for the presentation, but we are going to do a Q&A. If you have questions that come up while we're talking, you're welcome to throw those in the chat. We do ask that anything put in the chat or sent to us is, of course, done in a respectful way, being respectful not only of those who we invited to speak tonight, but of those that are also in the room this evening. We know that we're coming from varying experiences, concerns, excitement, and we want to be respectful to everybody. Quickly, our overview of homelessness is how we're going to start. I'm going to talk to you really briefly about the basis of safe outdoor spaces, where they came from, why do they exist, why do we keep putting them in place? And then we're going to hear from Cass Cronin. Cass Cronin ran the first pilot site in Colorado and was able to work with the neighborhoods and do good neighbor agreements and had a very successful site that then launched a program that now has over 17 sites throughout the Denver metro area and then has 12 sites in rural areas in Colorado. I'm then going to introduce you to the two organizations who responded to the RFP and were selected to move forward. Christ Lutheran, which is going to be the site owner and representative, as well as Lifelink, who is going to be setting up and providing services for the safe outdoor space. They're going to give you a really high-level overview of who they are, because we want you to know who they are and what they are thinking, why they applied, what their resources are. And then as we move forward through site setup and of course closer to opening, we'll have more community meetings and talk a little bit more in depth. So we already went over participant expectations. But again, please just let us know if you have questions at the end. We're happy to answer them. If you have to hop off before the end, please know that we're going to record all the questions in the chat, and we'll make sure to follow up with emails and question and answer sheets so that every question is answered and you have that ongoing. So the first thing that we like to always talk about is, what is homelessness? The idea of homelessness and how it has changed in the last 5 years alone is pretty significant. When we look at homelessness, we really have it in three different buckets. The first bucket is individuals who might be experiencing what is situational homelessness. A situation, much like job loss, COVID, which was a huge economic factor for so many, an illness, a sick parent, a sick kiddo, any of these things can cause you to lose your stability. Because it is a situation, we call it situational homelessness. Situational homelessness is usually the easiest to provide resources for. The caveat, and the reason I say it that way, is because we are in a current housing crisis. We have a housing market that is extraordinarily expensive. And so in the past, for situational homelessness, usually we could provide some basic resources, safety net connection, and then help people be rehoused. As we see in Santa Fe, the rental market is extraordinarily high. And so it is incredibly difficult to place people as quickly as we used to. The next level of homelessness is episodic homelessness. And episodic homelessness is exactly what it sounds like. You've had multiple episodes of homelessness. Episodic homelessness needs a little bit more. It's a medium touch response, usually a little bit longer term resource connection, more robust safety net connections, and then more importantly, can really get stabilized with rapid rehousing dollars, vouchers, things of that nature. I again throw the caveat in that if we were in a different housing market, even episodic homelessness would be a faster response for many of our service providers like Lifelink who are on, but we are all struggling with that housing navigation. The final classification of homelessness is chronic homelessness. Chronic homelessness takes the majority of our services. They usually need long-term wraparound support. Chronic homelessness means that you've been homeless usually for over a year, multiple times within 3 years. These are individuals who are served really well through permanent supportive housing, can find ongoing support and stability, but need to have continued engagement and continued resource and support from the community. Again, all of these take a level of services. Okay, so our service provider tonight on the phone is Lifelink, and you'll hear a little bit from them and their history. But you have lots of amazing service providers in Santa Fe who serve these varying situational, episodic, as well as chronic. The reason this is important when looking at the safe outdoor spaces, the safe outdoor spaces will serve people from each of these categories. It is also vital and important to understand that so many more people who are situational are ending up in some of these safe outdoor spaces around the nation because of the housing crisis. And so when we start to think about safe outdoor spaces, a lot of times we see people who are concerned about drug use and concerned about trash and concerned about some of the images that we see on papers where we have just popped up encampments. We're going to show you this evening what the safe outdoor spaces look like. And we also really want to start the evening by getting rid of the myth that these are going to only serve those who might be struggling and unable to get into housing or might be unable to interact with services. And we're going to talk about the importance and the differences of why these pallets can also serve a higher variety of individuals than usually congregate shelter. So this is what a pallet looks like. I've received so many emails since City Council asking if they were made of wood. They are not. They are not physically pallet houses. And if you Google it, you will get a pallet house in an image. This is a fiberglass house. They are fully insulated, but they come on a pallet. That's why they're called pallet shelters. When they pop up, they look like the other image. These are the exact units that the city of Santa Fe has purchased and that Christ Lutheran will have on their site. They are very beautiful. They can be popped up in an hour. I'm going to show you the inside of them, but they're very streamlined. They can withstand rain, wind, snow. We have them in Wisconsin, Alaska, and Colorado. And thus far, unless you get the 20 feet of snow they had in Fairbanks, Alaska, they have been able to withstand the elements. So what is a safe outdoor space? Many of you who are on here, I know I have met or seen over the last few years as we started to discuss the varying different things we could do to address the housing crisis and the increased need for those who are experiencing housing insecurity. One of those topics has always been a safe outdoor space. Safe outdoor spaces are really successful in the place that they are popped up because they are resource rich. And we'll talk about what that means. The most important thing with safe outdoor spaces is they are very different than a congregate shelter. When we think about congregate emergency sheltering, individuals have to be willing to usually part with a lot of their belongings because shelters don't have the space to place their belongings inside, have to be willing to go inside, have to be willing to sleep fairly close to other individuals. Many congregate shelters do not accept couples, so couples have to split up. Many don't accept families. Many don't accept pets. So there's a lot of limitations. We have individuals who simply are in such a state of trauma that being next to strangers, which even not in a state of trauma, sleeping a couple inches from a stranger is never something that usually individuals are comfortable with. But it is something that can be incredibly triggering. That is not a statement against emergency shelters. It is not a statement to say those in Santa Fe who are running those emergency shelters don't have a place. But the reason safe outdoor spaces are so successful is we're offering people their own individual space. Something that is so vital to understand with homelessness is that we are facing individuals who are in a state of trauma. Being housing insecure is traumatic. Being unhoused and having to sleep on the street is traumatic. Having to wonder if your things are safe, you are safe, where you're going to eat, that is all traumatic. We also know that for many individuals who are situational, they're going through traumatic experiences. We know individuals who have disabilities have gone through traumatic experiences. We know that a significant population of our unhoused have gone through childhood adverse traumatic experiences. And so being in traumatic states is not going to allow you to assimilate well. Outdoor spaces are those individuals have safe outdoor spaces like Casa Cronin's that serves women to anything domestic violence, that serve just low barrier open males and females. It is really up to sites who they serve, but their ability to serve the whole spectrum of chronic, episodic, and situational is pretty amazing. We don't have many shelter systems or housing systems that can do that. These systems are incredibly trauma informed, meaning we know that we're going to meet individuals where they are. Some individuals are going to come in and they're situationally homeless. We have many individuals in Aurora, Colorado. 30% are fully employed, working full-time jobs. Their leases just weren't renewed. And so they are unhoused. They're situationally homeless because they can't afford to live in the area. They are in the pallet shelters. They lock their things up. They go to their jobs. We are able to assist them in housing navigation. They're light touch, but we can still provide service. We have individuals who are chronically homeless. We have individuals who have disabilities, who might be on disability and unable to afford with their disability checks to live in the area. That is also important. We can serve those individuals knowing they might need a little bit more. We can also serve individuals who might need to start at getting an ID, right? The entire purpose of a safe outdoor space is we're able to meet people with the services that they need. And we don't expect them to meet a level of livability in order for them to participate in the program. One of the other great things is these pallet shelters have heat, they have air conditioning, they have electricity. You can charge your cell phones, you can plug in a lamp, you have your own windows and natural light. We do, as a service provider, always have a master key to pallet shelters. We also have an emergency entrance and exit in each of them. So safety has been put in place, but it's your own place, right? It's your own little house. On these sites, we always make sure you have your basic human needs. You're going to have showers, bathrooms, sanitation, food, laundry, all the things you need to live your day-to-day life, to go and apply for the job, to go and apply for the services, to feel like a human, and to have the health and nutrition you need for day-to-day subsistence are going to be provided on a site, because those are basic human needs. The other most amazing benefit of safe outdoor spaces is that your resources are brought to you. One of the biggest barriers for individuals getting transported to other services or having to go to scattered sites, one here for housing navigation, one here for case management, is that it takes time, it takes scheduling, it takes transportation. At a safe outdoor space, and something that LifeLink will talk a little bit about, but it's going to provide at the safe outdoor space, is bringing all of those resources to one spot. That works really well when we're trying to do that wraparound care, that wraparound service, no matter where it's starting, no matter what you need, to ensure that we can help you find the stepping stones to stability that meet you where you are. Pallet shelters are really cool because they are designed by individuals who are unhoused. They were designed by the unhoused for the unhoused. The entire purpose of pallet shelters is to create a community and to create a space where individuals can grow and find stability and then move forward, right, into stable housing and what is their next step solution. The goal of this safe outdoor space is not permanent housing. This is not going to be a place where individuals are going to be for 2 to 3 years. This is the place where people are going to come to receive wraparound services so that LifeLink and so that Christ Lutheran can provide that in-depth community and resource necessary to find stabilization in Santa Fe. So this is what they look like on the inside. They do come just white. I was asked if people love these beautiful murals, and they were hand painted in Tacoma, Washington by an artist, but they come white and are streamlined. They have to be spaced for each other. And then on the inside, and this is the ones that Santa Fe has purchased, again, you have your fire extinguisher, you have your fire alarm on the ceilings. You can have up to 2 individuals in one pallet. You can also fold one of those beds up and have more space. You have racking, emergency exiting, another window on the front that you can't see, and then the door that locks. Bathrooms are external, but we have bathrooms, community space, feeding space, all of those things that are provided to individuals within the community. But this is what your inside would look like. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Cass Cronin so she can talk a little bit about what her journey was with providing the first pilot in Colorado, and introduce you a little bit to how that worked with the community and how that worked for those individuals that were served through that safe outdoor space.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's my pleasure to be here again this evening, talking with the community of Santa Fe. I'm looking forward to this being a successful project for you all. If you can go to the next slide, please. So Earthlinks has actually been around. It's a nonprofit that's been around for nearly 28 years, working with adults primarily experiencing homelessness. Our regular programming, we actually have a longer-term program, a longer-term way that we meet people and work with them. We have a very high number of folks that we will get into housing within a year. Usually 70 to 90% of the people that come into our program will find some sort of permanent housing within a year of being in our program. What we do is we connect people with gardening, with creating products, basically working on some of the other pieces of what you'd call Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I think is on maybe one of the next slides. And we can go to that. That's what our normal program is like. During COVID, we stepped up and volunteered to do the first outdoor space in Denver. And you can go ahead and move forward, Kathleen, if you'd like. And the reason was that, we were in an emergency. I don't know if you remember it, but it was pretty traumatic for everybody. And we had a lot of folks on the street in Denver, and there had been a discussion around whether or not we could open up a safe outdoor space for probably a year during the initial stages of COVID. And it took us really about almost 10 months to persuade the city and all the powers that be that we could do this. We were able to basically open our site up, and a second site with public financing was open just a few days after ours. So we had 2 going at the same time. If you're looking at this pyramid on the screen, this is the kind of a hierarchy of needs that's been sort of accepted in many social service agencies. And what the shelters, the safe outdoor space shelter system is looking at those basic needs, which are the ones at the bottom, the green and purple. The safety needs for security and safety, and the psychological and physical needs of food, water, warmth, rest. Hydration is a really big issue for folks that are on the street, and often leads to early death just from that particular condition. So the reason we wanted to go with this route was to see if we could do an intervention for people who were supposed to be staying home that didn't have a home during COVID, and see what we could do in terms of trying out this project and seeing how successful it would be. You can go ahead and change to the next slide. Kathleen already talked about the trauma-informed approach. Our approach was slightly probably more restrictive than what you're going to be seeing in Santa Fe. We had limited our demographic to women and to transgender individuals, and they had to be 18 and above to be in our particular space. The piece to remember that was really important is that we always had 2 staff members on site at all times, 24/7. That's a big lift. So I'm glad that LifeLink will be taking that on. I'm sure they'll do a fine job with that. And the security of the site was very important. So we had a secured entrance. Everything was fenced. We were not fortunate enough to have the pallet shelters that the city of Santa Fe has purchased. It would have been delightful if we had had that. We instead had some ice fishing tents. We set these up in December and we had them up through June. And the location of our site was very near our capital, so very near downtown Denver, and in the middle of 3 apartment buildings, basically on the site of a church parking lot. So we had a lot of density in our area, and there were a lot of concerns that residents, when they heard we hope to do this project, were concerned about, and I'll be happy to talk to you about what those were for the community. So you can go on to the next slide, Kathleen. The benefits for the participants that came into our community were that they had a place that they could keep their things. They were secure. For those people that were, basically into or being used as prostitutes, for example, they had an opportunity not to do that because they had a place to be. They didn't have to sleep their way to a place to basically sleep with someone in order to have a place to stay at night. They were very pleased to be there. We had folks that did have issues with alcohol or drugs and mental health, of course. It was expected that the people that were in our community would not be having drugs or alcohol on site. And that was an expectation that they were committed to. I'm sure there were some violations, but we were not aware of any outright violations that we ever observed. We also had the requirement that there be quiet hours, so that if people wanted to be playing music or listening to some story or something on a podcast, that for the benefit of their other neighbors within our community and the broader community neighbors, that there would be quiet hours. And I believe our site was after 9 o'clock at night. We had food that was brought into us every day by volunteers. We had a whole cadre of volunteers that kept us well fed the entire time. And we did have porta potties and some hand sinks and that sort of thing on site. The opportunity for showers was limited for us, but we did at times have access to a shower trailer and laundry trailer. And that was helpful for the people who were and committed. on them to be able to help us come in and get the actual services provided other than just the safety and the day-to-day basic needs services to provided to people to lodging. They were very stretched. And so had we had the right funding, unit 50 individuals during the 6 months, about 10%, 5 of them actually moved on to, you can go on to the next one. The big PD really, many of the people in the community were concerned, and you can go on to the next slide, about whether or not there'd be more people coming in. Would there be more crime in the area? Would there be more drug dealers in the area? Would it create a lot more disruption to the community from where we were? And that was from the outside. So the housed community was very concerned about those things. We had a great amount of support from our police department, who having the supervision. All of that would lead to in the issues of the people, that sort of thing in the neighborhood. And in fact, from our particular project was that there was a decrease in all of that kind of what I would call community destabilization as a result of us having our site. So this one comment here about there were a lot of people that were able to have a good night's sleep. They were off the streets and they were able to start thinking about future. That is really true. The issue in COVID was we also were still and continue to be in this great housing crisis. And so it's been very difficult to find the right places in Denver for people to move on to. Nonetheless, we did see improvements in people just from the time they entered until the time they were moved either to the next site or they did move on to some other housing situation. You can go on to the next slide. So the common concerns that I just mentioned about the trash and the increased crime and drugs did not come true. And one of the way that we worked on that was to, first of all, our community was private in the sense that just not anyone could come in. So visitors were not allowed in the community in our case. If you were an outreach worker or you were providing a service or you were from the public health agencies, of course, you would be having site time that you would be able to come in. We provided computer access for people who were in AA or otherwise seeking therapy. If you remember, most of those things were not done in person during the COVID times. And so we provided that for those people that would need or be able to participate in that way. We also provided an agreement with our neighbors that we would I'm going to call it police, but I don't mean that in a sense of crime. We would look around the agency and we would, or our particular spot, and we would make sure that the trash was picked up. And that if there were people kind of just hanging around, we'd go and talk to them and ask them what they were doing and ask them to move on. And we had really almost universal compliance with any of those efforts that we did. We entered into formal good neighbor agreements with our local resident community, which basically provided all those things I said: security, no visitors. We would be checking around and moving people along if people did start hanging around our area. Interestingly, we had our staff was trained in some basic first aid and that sort of thing, and many of you may have heard of a drug called Narcan, which is a drug that's used to kind of disrupt the the results of really killer drug use of certain drugs. And we never had to use that on site at our site. However, one of the housing units across from us had the Narcan and saved that person's life and from a housed community. So I think a lot of notions that everyone on the street is going to be causing all the problems, and that was not in our situation what we actually ended up finding. We had a third person outside consulting group who did look over and look at our results, and then even further on, because as Kathleen said, these are now operated by other operators in Denver on a regular basis, and the crime reports also have indicated reductions in almost all of the areas where these have been placed. So I just want to try to reassure the community that that actually this is a really good intervention. It's a great intervention for folks who do have pets, who might be couples. At least here in Denver, it's almost impossible to find any shelter system that will take either of those two people. And just the idea of being able to have your own space and feel that you can lock your own door makes a huge difference in our sense of safety. So I am a fan, and I'm happy to answer any other questions at the end if there's time. So thank you.
Thank you. And a couple of things that I think are important. The first is, when these first started coming up nationally, sites like this have been used across the nation at varying times. We really started seeing them really become the front and center solution during COVID for multiple reasons. When we saw an increase in the number of individuals who had to be outside because shelter capacity had to be cut. Most shelters had to cut their capacity by 53% to meet COVID standards and restrictions, 6-foot restrictions from each other. We also saw a detrimental increase, about 86% nationally, in domestic violence victims going outside because they were trapped home with their abusers. We also then had this mass layoff and economic impact on individuals, all watching our housing prices and our housing markets continue to increase. So homelessness increased exponentially. We know even most recently, right, that we saw a national increase at the highest level we've seen in a decade this last year. So homelessness is continuing to increase. We know for a fact that a lot of that is tied to our housing costs. That being said, that pulls us straight back to situational homelessness. And these pallet shelters have really come front and center as being a solution, because for many of us, we know that individuals need a place to go. They need a safe place to sleep, a safe place to lock up their things, a safe place to be. They need the support and the housing navigation to help find a place that is going to be sustainable, which is incredibly hard in Santa Fe due to the high rental costs that people are facing. And so having something like a pallet really does offer that temporary solution so that we can get those resources in place for individuals and help them move on. With that, I would love to introduce the Christ Lutheran team. We have Joeen and Allison and Susan all here this evening, and they are going to tell you a little bit about who they are, why on earth did they respond to this RFP, and what they have on their site as well that made it such a great and viable site for this solution.
Thanks a lot, Kathleen. Hello, everyone. My name is Allison Fail. My role, I am a member of Christ Lutheran Church, and my role in this project is as the project manager and liaison with all of the stakeholders. Pastor Joeen Hare, as you can tell by her introduction, is our pastor. She's been with us for a number of years and very excited and supportive of this process. Also, we have Susan Rathjen, who is assisting moving things along on our end of it. Christ Lutheran Church has been in Santa Fe for 60 years. We just celebrated our 60-year anniversary. We've been very involved in the community. We assisted in getting the farmers market up and started way back ages ago. Again, if I didn't say so, I want to thank all of the participants that registered for this presentation. We're delighted about your interest and want to hear about your comments as we go along. Could I have the next slide, please, Kathleen? A little bit about us, as you can read on the slide. We're an open and affirming congregation, acceptant of all who come through our doors, no matter what their political preference may be, whatever their sexual orientation, whatever their religious practices, basically. We also host the S3 Santa Fe Housing Initiative community, which is a group of volunteers who are interested in homing homeless and unhoused issues in our community. We have many of those individuals who have helped us in this process and are committed to helping us as we go along the process. Our role in this project is to provide everything related to the site itself. And after our presentation, you'll be hearing from LifeLink, who will be providing the services for our safe outdoor space. If you could please go, there we are. We decided that we have paved space for up to 10 pallet shelters. We have to have 10 feet in between them per the request for application from the city. Our site is sheltered from street traffic. We are not located in a residential area per se. We have residential areas close by, and we want to be good neighbors to them. Most of our immediate office are in regular community meetings. We have a fire station. Fire station number 4 is directly across the street from our property, so that should there be emergency services required, that would be very accessible. We also have St. Vincent's Hospital within walking distance, and also the PMS urgent care services, if that would be required. It's a little hike, but there are grocery stores and fast food facilities within walking distance. And the next slide, Kathleen. Our building has a separately accessible entry, so we can provide office space for a project manager, for LifeLink, for volunteers, and for service providers who are part of the operators' programs. This office area can be locked to prevent entry from our church's common space. There is also a bathroom with one shower across from the LifeLink office, and that could be scheduled for shower time for our guests in the safe outdoor space. We also have a kitchen facility, and that could be also scheduled for supervised use. In addition, there's outdoor seating and a labyrinth on site. Next slide, please, Kathleen. In addition to what we have discussed so far, we have a free food pantry every Thursday morning, which could be available for our SOS guests. Our facility itself is used 7 days a week with multiple Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholic Anonymous meetings, which would be available should that be part of a resident's case management plan. We also, the church sponsors a weekly board game time, which can get a little rowdy, but it's fun, which would be available to residents as a social outlet. And we want to make sure that everyone is aware that there will be no proselytizing. However, Sunday church services are available if a guest wishes. That's totally voluntary. Next slide, Kathleen. And before I wrap this up, I wanted to also tell people that on our outdoor site, we have a conceptual plan and renderings that our architect, Spears Horn, has developed for us. And we have a common space that will be available to folks. We have plans for refuse collection. We have something I'm excited about. We also have a gardening group that meets at our church on a regular basis, and they have volunteered to help us put together some potting, some huge planters that we are interspersing between the pallet shelters so that residents can grow vegetables, can have flower beds, that sort of thing. So we're excited about the possibilities of that as well. And I want to ask Pastor Joanne if she would like to add anything to what I've already said.
Thank you, Allison. On our church website, ChristLutheranSantaFe.org, we have our response and the architect's renderings. And Allison didn't mention, because I saw in the chats concerns about there will be separate trash collection. We'll have bicycle racks. We'll have a pet area and one of those stands that you see for pet owners to collect their pet refuse, and also 2 porta potties. One of the shelters is set up to be ADA compliant, as will be one of the porta potties. Yeah, we know that we only have one shower. We're thankful that we have that and can make it available. And we are looking at creating a nonprofit further in the year once this is set up, and have the possibility on our property of adding laundry facilities and possibly other personal need facilities. So we are excited. If you look at, again, the designs we have coyote fencing surrounding the shelters, and I don't think that had been mentioned, which provides privacy for both the residents and for the various people who use our building for their meetings. So it's attractive, and we hope the residents, the guests will develop and feel a sense of community.
Wonderful.
And thank
so
you.
much.
Please feel free to add any questions to the chat box that you might have. Thank you.
Yes, and I know a few of you did come on after we started. If you do have questions as we continue on, please do feel free to put those in the chat box. We're going to try to get to all the questions that are in there, and of course then take those questions down so that we can publish them, so that everyone, even those who weren't able to make the meeting tonight, can see those questions and responses. And I did have a private message And yes, this is going to be available. We're going to make sure we can email this out, we can put it online, so that those who were unable to make it tonight or maybe want to review it are more than welcome to have that recording. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Janelle, who's joining us tonight from LifeLink. Again, just to let us know really high level who LifeLink is and why they put in to do this and what their high level plans are as far as the site services.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry, I've been quiet too long. Whew. So yeah, I am the Outreach Services Program Manager at the LifeLink. I'm also a independently licensed therapist, so I'm going to be kind of like the clinical supervisor of the whole program. I guess this is a beautiful little statement about the LifeLink is committed to improving individual and community health through breaking cycles of chronic homelessness, mental illness, trauma, exploitation, and addiction. Can go to the next slide. Sorry. I am awful. So if I'm reading too much or whatever, just, I don't know, slow me down. But yeah, LifeLink's main building has been serving the community since 1987. I always like to joke with people that we're the giant building across from Smith's on Cerrillos Road because nobody knows where we are. And they think it's an apartment complex, but we're actually a full behavioral health agency right there on the street. But we do provide culturally appropriate, supportive, and effective services. I really like that. The LifeLink itself operates from a trauma-informed model. Everything we do is trauma-informed with everybody we serve. Go ahead, you can go to the next slide. Whoa. This is like our little mission statements that we kind of run by. You can read those. I'm not going to read them to you, or you can look at our website, because those are all there on our website as well. But yeah, treating people with dignity and respect. Okay, sorry. You can go ahead and move to the next slide. So what is our role in the SOS? So we will be the service provider on site. We're going to have staff there 7 days a week, but from 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. the following day, we're just going to have trained security on staff. We don't do contracting with security companies. We hire our folks into the agency and we train them to be trauma informed, to learn crisis de-escalation, and to just be compassionate and treat people with respect. That's, I think, the biggest thing. And that was very important to us as we developed what we were going to do as the service providers, is that we would not contract out, no disrespect, but we've just heard some horror stories and we want to just be able to ensure that the people in the shelters would be treated just as any other person should be treated. We are going to be providing food, water, case management, housing navigation. LifeLink is the local lead agency for housing in Santa Fe County. So we kind of will be able to bring in our own housing specialist into the site once a week so they can start developing housing plans for everybody. Connection to community resources and community stabilization. I think one of our big things for me was creating a whole community over at the site. So we have something called psychosocial rehabilitation, or our clubhouse at the LifeLink, where we have a cooking group, and that cooking group is going to be providing the meals Monday through Friday. On the weekends, we're going to be relying on volunteers to get the meals over there. The clubhouse also has groups like meditation groups, and they will be providing that as well. Just to answer a question I saw in the chat, in regards to night as supervisors, if our staff can't handle a situation, then either I will be called for crisis de-escalation. I'm going to be like on call 24/7. And if that doesn't work, we're working on a connection with the ARU, or the Alternative Response Unit here in town, the police, crisis center. We're working on building all of these connections so that we can support these people if they're having a crisis after hours. Yeah, And so pretty much everything is going to be taken to them. One of the barriers as well is, again, transportation, like that was noted earlier in the chat. My navigators that will be on site will be available to provide transportation during work hours. We have it kind of planned that everybody will be able to request transportation to their doctor's appointments, transportation to the laundromat, all this, grocery stores, what have you, and that we would be able to make ourselves available for that. It doesn't help with the outside hours, the overnight hours, but that is something that we would be working on. Because that's something that hasn't been asked if somebody has to get a ride after hours. But we're also talking about staggering hours too. We're going to see kind of how the flow works. If it's going to be someone 8 to 5 and another person 10 to 7 or 12 to 8, we're willing to make those adjustments based on the needs of the clients as well. I feel like there was something important that I needed to say that I can't remember. So I think that's all I've got. Please feel free to reach out to me. I could put my email in the box or in the chat box, so you guys can reach out with any other questions, as well as speaking to Kathleen. If you had something, if there's any ideas, we are looking for volunteers. So any volunteers that want to get involved as well, please reach out to me. I'm compiling a list of folks that we'll keep in the loop, I guess you could say. So yeah, and we'll be continuing these meetings, I believe, right? For the community.
Yes.
So we'll be able to keep everybody giving updates for everybody. So that's it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I just want to add, Janelle, Kathleen, before you go on, we've
Yeah.
also been getting contacts at Christ Lutheran Church. People have called wanting to volunteer, and we have a spreadsheet as well. And we'll coordinate people who want to volunteer with what they feel their skill set is. So we've been really thrilled with the community response we've received so far.
Yes. I know some of you as volunteers are on here tonight. So thank you. So what are our next steps? So as Janelle just mentioned, this is the first of many community meetings. We are going to hold more community meetings while the site is getting prepared. While we're beginning, of course, Christ Lutheran and LifeLink were just awarded their contracts right before Christmas. And so as those things start to move forward and things fall into place, we will be communicative and transparent about where that is and what the timelines look like. We're also going to be working collectively to release the Good Neighbor Agreement for those who are in the surrounding area of this SOS. That Good Neighbor Agreement will be solidified, agreed upon by Christ Lutheran and LifeLink, and then will be put in place. And of course, will be active the entirety of the time that the Safe Outdoor Space is operating. You will start to see, if you're around there, site setup. I put this up here because this is one I got to go to. I have been fortunate enough to set up 7 of these sites now. It's really kind of thrilling to watch them go up. The actual work that the contractors get to do is going to start with everything from pulling electric and ensuring the stability, so flat surfacing. And then Pallet gets to come in with one of their crews and they pop these up. They're an hour a piece. It's pretty wonderful. And they love to have volunteers help. So if that's something you'd like to do, is come and learn how to pop up a pallet shelter. We would love to have you for that as well. Just let us know. And then of course for LifeLink, they get to onboard all their staff and start doing training and getting everyone ready, because they are implementing new staff members and a new program there on site. Obviously, they do multiple programs that encompass everything they're already doing, but Janelle will get to continue to move that part of their contract forward. So what information is available to the community in general? Again, if you have questions, we cannot stress enough that you are welcome to reach out to any and all of us. My email is going to be on the next slide. If you are me, you're going to walk away from this thinking I should probably have a question, and at 2 in the morning, that's going to hit you. Please feel free to send an email. We really do want to hear your excitement, your concerns, your questions. We really want to make sure that we're working as part of your community with the community to bring something forth that's going to benefit us all. This recording is going to be available every time we do a community meeting. We will not only have flyers, but we always make sure we record it. We do try and have them at night. We do try and do them on Zoom to make them more accessible, but we do know that there are limitations in everyone's schedule. So if you can't make a meeting, please feel free to let us know. We'll always post the recordings, but we're always happy to email them directly to you as well. We have a one-pager and some flyers that we're going to have available as well here shortly. An amazing group of volunteers who have offered to do some canvassing with that information as well. And then, of course, ongoing meetings. While we'll have some of them staggered until site setup, every single month, we will have a community meeting once this site is launched, once we have a move-in date and people are actively on the site. And the reason for that, again, is much like Cass went through. We want to make sure that we're being transparent, what's working, what's not working. Cass's meeting started with hundreds of people coming. By the end of the 6 months we had, I think the last meeting had 4 individuals show up, and they were all wonderful and supportive. It's also a way if you want to volunteer, you want to hear about needs, you want to hear about how you can help with food or clothing or donations. It's always a great way to come and get some updates and to hear a little bit more about that. I'm going to turn this off in just a minute, but so everybody has it, this is my email address. So you're welcome to email me anything. If you want to set up some time to hop on the phone, or when I'm in the area, go for a walk, I'd be more than happy to do all of those things. So please feel free to email me. And if you want to get in touch with Pastor Joeen and Allison or Janelle, I'll be working really closely with all of these amazing individuals moving forward to make sure that this is implemented. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody and we can look at some of the questions. Fix my chat. I'm going to go all the way back
Kathleen,
to the
I can
beginning.
read you questions.
Great.
That's helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. What is the sanitation plan for I'm just going in order. So they'll be kind of all over the place. What is the sanitation plan for the Santa Fe homes? Or if there's no bathrooms or showers, will the mobile sanitation unit be the primary servicer?
The mobile sanitation unit that you all had approved a few years ago is actually in use at a different site. And so at this site, they are going to have, as she said, those 2 porta potties outside, and then they have the 1 facility inside that they'll be able to use as well. So that sanitation, again, that's a really big key component, right, to any site. So making sure there's sanitizer and hand washing stations, and then of course the shower on site as well.
Great. There were a couple questions related to transportation, knowing that this site is a little bit further away from some services, and just a lot of questions around, will there be transportation provided? How's that link going to work?
Yeah, and Janelle, I'm just going to kind of repeat what you just said, which is I know that LifeLink has been planning on providing transportation, within a certain level of capacity to individuals who do need to get to other appointments and things that we aren't maybe bringing to site. The goal, of course, is that we are going to try and bring as much to site as possible, especially when it comes to those services. But we will provide some transportation, and we do actually have some funders who are interested in providing bus tickets and things of that nature for individuals to also get around.
Thank you. I think this was covered by Janelle, but some questions about food and how residents are fed and that need is met.
Yes, I'm excited about that. Janelle mentioned they actually have another program that produces the food. So 5 days a week, the food will be coming through that other program at LifeLink. And then volunteers will be asked to provide food on the weekends. So if that is something, and I have a private message about that you're interested in doing, please just, again, email us and let us know, and we can help set up a food schedule for anyone who wants to assist.
There's a great comment about how art fosters community. Are there any plans for volunteer artists or paintings or murals on the shelter for this site?
Joey, I'd have to ask you that. I know that you know, a lot of the site proposal that I have seen, you know, had planters and things that were really going to make it a community. But I don't know if we've talked about artists yet.
We had talked about painting the murals or having murals, but we were considering just having chain fence, and we're going to be having coyote fence. So I agree. And in fact, we host, Christ Lutheran Church hosts an creative art community Thursday afternoons. And some of them are professional artists who use the space. So we're open to see how art might be used. And again, there will be the community room, which is enclosed. It's not really, it's not a tent, and it's a kind of temporary permanent structure, not unlike the pellet shelters. So there will be tables and chairs and places in there for people to do things. I also saw in the chats, and I'm going to mention before I mute, I'm a member of the Interfaith Leadership Alliance. We're having our monthly meeting tomorrow. They are aware and have been aware for the past year since we've been involved in this project of what Christ Lutheran is doing. And I'll be going in person tomorrow, and I'll be excited to share that the faith communities will, you know, can consider volunteering and providing meals on weekends. That would be a great opportunity for other members of the Interfaith Alliance to be involved. And this is different from Pete's Place. The Interfaith Leadership Alliance are leaders of various faith communities in the Santa Fe area.
Thank you. Some questions around how we can ensure that neighbors and community members are informed of ongoing meetings going forward, and how distribution of flyers and information about community meetings will work going forward.
Yes, so we are going to do, again, we're going to do canvassing for the immediate area and communities. We'll always post them online. But if you're someone who would like to just ensure you're on an email list with us, again, I'll have Sarah or Lauren put my email in the chat. Just go ahead and shoot me an email, and I'll make sure we put you on the distribution list, and you're guaranteed to get it every time.
Could we go over what the 24-hour supervision looks like again? Just repeat it, either Kathleen or Janelle, just what that plan is for overnight supervision especially.
Yes. So there are, again, rules and regulations. They have to sign their policy and procedures with that. But so staffing, the difference with staffing is there's different levels of staff. During the night, we don't need case managers. We don't need to ensure there's housing navigation. Those are all going to occur during the day. So staffing at night is really just about security. So the staff is LifeLink staff. They are security trained with de-escalation, trauma-informed care. They know the protocol on, right, Janelle was saying, you know, someone who might be in a personal crisis versus maybe needing to dial 911. They're fully trained on those different scenarios. Their job is really to make sure that individuals within that community are safe and the surrounding community are safe. But there are people from LifeLink on site 24/7 for all of that staffing needs.
Thank you. Sorry, I scrolled down and got lost in the questions. Can you explain a little bit about who qualifies to join this pallet shelter community, and are there targeted guests? You know, some of them have been just women, some families, couples, etc. Is there a plan for who is the outreach for this and targeted community?
So I know that we're in ongoing discussions. So, you know, that is something now that the contracts were approved to serve the community that LifeLink will be fostering. The one thing that we know for sure is that they have to be referred into this program. So someone can't just walk up and apply for a pallet on site. But we are still in early stages of having the conversations of what that's going to look like with LifeLink as they plan out since they just received their contract.
Thank you. And a little more about the security on the site. Do you know yet what visitor policy will look like? I know this is all still being fleshed out, but will it be a secured kind of gated facility with visitors having to check in, or what's planned for that?
So again, a lot of those policies are being developed based off of the best practices, and we'll be more in depth with those as we move forward before the site opens. The site is secure, so the site is gated. Again, they have that coyote fencing that's going in around the site for so many reasons, including we don't want anybody to, there's a lot going on this amazing campus, and we want there to be some privacy as well. Obviously, then we'll have where all of our case managers and where all of security will be able to secure the site, know who's on there with policy and procedures. As far as guests, again, we'll probably follow best practice for that. There's a variety of ways that guests work, but usually there are hours, like night hours and secure hours, in which guests usually are not allowed on site. But those policies, again, once they're finalized and developed, we'll make sure we release those to the community.
Thank you. Is there a timeline, Kathleen, that you could share with folks about construction and move-in?
Yes. Reasonably right now, the city and Kara Ochoa had said that they really want to get this site up sooner rather than later. I know that everyone who's on here, including Christ Lutheran, have been really planning and trying to move this forward as quickly as possible, and have been incredibly committed for the last year. Right now, the first step is for the contractors to get on site and start to prepare. And so that's going to start to occur here in the next few weeks. And as we get a more solidified timeline from them, again, we'll release that for you all.
There's several questions around volunteers, around one being trained by LifeLink possibly, and then another training locals, including city staff and the pallet company training volunteers. I know a lot of that's TBD, but anything to add there?
Yeah, so volunteer training, we'll be offering trauma-informed training to any volunteer who would like to have it. It depends on what type of volunteering you'd like to do. If you're cooking food, if you want to sit in on some of our, our organization offers de-escalation, trauma-informed care, secondhand trauma training on a monthly basis, Narcan training, things of that nature. So we welcome anybody in the community at any time to join those trainings. I'm sure I'll be working closely with Janelle to make sure that the volunteers, depending on what your volunteer job might be, right, have training for that. As far as setting up the physical pallets, they will go through a training that morning to teach you how to set up the physical pallet, as well as talk about site safety and what's necessary. What we usually end up doing is about a week before the pallets are delivered, which is a very fun moment. We will send out a, hey, this is how you show up. My own father could tell you it's very fun. They tell you to bring all your tools and what tools to bring, and they provide you a hard hat and they kind of walk you through, this is what you do. Saying you need a hard hat is probably making it more intense than it actually is. I have put together a pallet, and they are just panels you click in place. So it's really fun, but we will make sure you have the training. And then of course we love to bring food and share meals with everyone who wants to come and gather with us in community.
Thank you. This question relates more to the city of Santa Fe. So shout out to Alma, who's been answering some questions in the chat, but I'm not sure we have anybody on. But relating to the other pallets that the city has purchased or planned to purchase, are there other plans for those pallets? Would they be at this site or other sites? Knowing that 125 units total was amount stated back in December of 2022, and then there are additional units purchased.
Yeah, so I know that originally
Kathleen, I think you froze.
Uh-oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
You're back.
I almost made it through an entire Zoom without freezing everybody. So yes, there was an original statement about a year ago from the city that they were looking at, and they had the ARPA funds to purchase up to. It is my understanding that around 25 were purchased. I do not work from the city, so they might be less. Yes, Alma said yes, 25 were purchased. This site only has the capacity for 10. So they would not go at this site. There are no other current plans in place to start a second pilot at this time. But again, these pallets collapse back down onto that beautiful actual pallet and can be stored for emergency response and kept for a really long time. So my guess is the city is just going to store the other ones in the meantime.
Thank you. Is there a timeline for good neighbor agreements, and will those be shared publicly or emailed out? And how will those be finalized?
Yes, so we are in development of the Good Neighbor Agreement. Again, it's developed between the two, so the site provider and the service provider. And then we will hold conversations with the local businesses and the community residents who are immediately in the surrounding area. Once that is all confirmed, we will post it. It'll be up online. We can email it out. It will be made available of what we've agreed our commitment is.
A question around a group being involved in the interfaith meeting tomorrow. Is Mountain Cloud Zen Center included in the interfaith meeting? I'm not sure if Pastor Joey and you know.
I do not. They perhaps have joined in the past month. I did not attend the December meeting. In the past, their leader was not a part of the Interfaith Leadership Alliance. So, I mean, it's an open organization, but to my knowledge, no.
There was an email list that was created out of that meeting back in December of 2022. That might be that volunteer list. Kathleen, is that email list active, and could it be used, or does anybody know from that meeting if that list is being used to outreach about these meetings and efforts?
I know that volunteer list was, that volunteer list has grown into the S3 volunteer group. If you signed a different list, I'm happy.
Kathleen, we lost you again. I will do, while Kathleen comes back, I will do a shout out to the S3 Housing Initiative that has a community volunteer group. And somebody wrote that there is a January 13th potluck at Christ Lutheran Church, and that is a great way to join this effort and learn more and get on the S3 volunteer list as well.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I live really close to an Air Force base, so when they fly over me, I lose my internet. Sorry, everyone. I will look into that, Bill. If it wasn't a volunteer list, we can look and see if someone still has a hold of those. What I would recommend is if you want to be on our emailing list, to go ahead and just shoot me an email, and we'll make sure that you're on ours.
I think I got most of the questions. Does anybody have any last questions, or is there a topic area I missed that others saw?
Okay. Well, if you have a question or you're me and it comes to you at 2 in the morning, please again reach out to myself or any of the other presenters. And again, I can't say enough how happy and honored we are to not only be here, but happy to take the walk and have any conversation or help. We have volunteers who are volunteering in the chat right now to do different things. If you have a skill set you'd like to bring, please feel free to come forward. It's always amazing to have the community be a part. And that S3 volunteer group is also doing more than just the safe outdoor space. I will say that they've been really, really active. So if you have other interests in volunteering outside of the safe outdoor space, that S3 volunteer group is a great group to get involved with as well. And for those of you who sent some private chats about wanting to be included, we will make sure that we get you on our email list. And if you do not hear from me, check your spam. I am learning that apparently my first email to some people is hitting their spam box. So please keep my email. And my email has my desk phone and my cell phone as well on it. So you're always welcome to reach out to me via phone. Okay. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
Good evening.